How's it going, geeks and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel. Now, if you've been here before, you know that I usually talk about the coolest and best horror collectibles out there and showcase stuff that all horror fans would feel proud to have displayed on their shelves. But today we're going to be doing something a little different. This time I'm showing you guys some of the most terrible horror figures ever made, and you honestly won't believe that some of these actually exist. From cursed bootleg figures to bizarre and frankly awful merchandise ideas, join me as we take a look at the worst, weirdest, and downright baffling horror collectibles and figures ever made. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the wacky world of weird horror merchandise. So we're going to kick things off with the man of our dreams and one of horror's most beloved icons, Freddy Krueger. Being one of, if not the, most commercialized horror character in history, besides the classic Universal monsters, the Springwood slasher has received a wide and vast range of different merchandise, most of which are awesome collectibles. But with the good comes the bad and the ugly. And it's got to be said that over the years, Freddy has had his frightful image slapped on some interesting products, to say the least. In 1989, the toy company and video game publisher, LJN, produced multiple Nightmare on Elm Street collectibles, including this rubber Freddy figure that looks pretty decent for the time, but then we've got the Freddy Squish'em, which looks a bit more crappy. And then there's these bizarre Freddy and Victim spitballs. Fill them up with water and then squeeze for that scary 18-foot squirt. Okay, now I know I'm being childish, but what were they thinking? These things are just so peculiar. The spitball of Freddy is particularly horrific and looks like Robert Englund's face is growing out of a testicle. And I love that the other included spitball is just some random Pee Wee Herman looking dude with the claw marks going down his face. And then we also have the Freddy Fright Squirter. Slip your hand into the fiendish face and watch Freddy squirt water all over the place. Not Dr. Seuss's best work, I've got to say. So this disembodied Freddy head is essentially a water gun, and honestly, I think this one is actually pretty cool, and to give credit where credit is due, the sculpting is quite good and pretty accurate to Freddy's appearance. For 1989, this is genuinely impressive. I guess it's also worth mentioning that LJN was the company behind the utter dog shit Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th video games that released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1990, and they have since gone down in infamy and left their own mark on popular culture. Even NECA made figures based on the 8-bit appearances of these slasher titans. And it's crazy to think just how big Freddy Krueger was in the 80s. He truly became a pop culture phenomenon and was marketed like some kind of rock star, hence all this merchandise. From board games to fancy dress costumes, t-shirts, dolls, to even yo-yos, and it hasn't stopped since. Nowadays, we're blessed to have such incredible collectibles such as the action figures, statues, glove replicas, and much more. But even in recent times, we get our fair share of unusual items, such as Loot Crate's Freddy Krueger chopsticks, and I've got to say, I love it. However, when it comes to crazy merchandise, you cannot beat the bootlegs, and this is where things get absolutely cursed. And first up, we've got the infamous Nightmare Freddy? Nightmare Freddy. I guess this is Freddy Krueger's long lost cousin from a factory in China, and as you can see, this 12-inch figure comes in a window box that features some mental artwork of Freddy Krueger. I mean, Nightmare Freddy on the front, who for some reason is wearing a short sleeve Dennis the Menace style t-shirt. And this is strange because the figure itself actually has a half decent sweater in the correct colours of red and green. And on the back there's even more bewildering artwork of Freddy sneaking around outside someone's house at night, which is honestly terrifying. Weirdly enough though, the figure doesn't really look half bad. I mean, yeah, it's bootleg as but he could definitely look a lot worse. But can someone please tell me who decided to give Freddy a pair of f***ing loafers? And to make matters worse, he's not wearing any socks with them either. Freddy is a pure f***ing maniac. But we can't talk about bootleg Freddy Krueger merchandise without talking about one of the most legendary knockoff figures of all time. The one and only 𝙆𝙊𝙎𝙎𝙁. They really were just taking the piss for this one, weren't they? Being one of the most notorious bootlegs of all time, this hybrid of Freddy Krueger and Where's Wally, or Where's Waldo for you guys across the pond, was produced by a company called Sungold in 1990 as part of their monster figure line. Very creative name, guys, 10 out of 10 for effort. The series essentially comprised of Universal Monsters bootlegs, including such characters as Bloody Mummy, Killing Beast, Green Frankie, Midnight Wolf, King of Vampires, which looks more like the Joker if he was on crack, and of course, 𝙆𝙊𝙎𝙎. However, he didn't receive the name until he was later released by German company Simba, who, for better or for worse, decided to give this group of misfits their respective names on the packaging. Since becoming a meme on the internet, 𝙆𝙊𝙎𝙎 has ended up receiving newfound fame, and is now a perfect example of something being so bad that it's good. He's even got his own merch for a bootleg toy, and I definitely think it's due to the epic name more than anything else. Now, I just wish they would have made a whole Slasher Villains bootleg line and made releases with names like Hockey Mask Harry or Boogeyman Bob. I would definitely be lying to you, however, if I didn't say that 𝙆𝙊𝙎𝙎 is on my wish list. Having him on the shelf in the collection would just be priceless. Now, let's be honest, we've all got a little bit of a soft spot for our boy 𝙆𝙊𝙎𝙎. And moving on now from the plethora of insane Freddy Krueger merchandise, I want to talk about some modern horror collectibles that are honestly some of the worst figures I have ever seen. And I'm talking specifically about Funko's Savage World action figure line. Now, I'm not a big fan of Funko as it is, and I think the Funko Pops are just awful. Unpopular opinion maybe, but that's a conversation for another time. But nothing compares to this. Several years ago, they released these Savage World figures, which were essentially iconic horror characters made in the style of 80s He-Man toys. And they are genuinely the stupidest looking pieces of shit I have ever had the displeasure of laying my eyes on. I've referenced this figure line on multiple videos in the past on this channel, and no matter how hard I try, I unfortunately cannot erase the memory of these things from my brain. I mean, these look more like bootlegs than actual bootlegs, if that makes sense. And I love how the Michael Myers figure carries the Halloween Resurrection license for some reason. I find it very fitting that one of the worst movies in the entire franchise is slapped on one of the worst official figures of Michael Myers. These figures honestly look AI generated, and they really do speak for themselves. No amount of words that I could possibly conjure up would ever allow me to express my pure hatred for these things. Okay, maybe I'm going a little bit too far now, but they f***ing suck. It just begs the question of, what were they thinking? And I'm sure there is an audience out there for these things, but for me personally, I think if the clearance figure bin had a mascot, these guys would be it. Dog shit. And another popular collectibles line that I find just baffling is the Tubbz Ducks. These things are essentially Funko Pops, but instead of being humanoid characters, they're ducks. I don't get it. Now, before someone says it, yes, I know these things are a play on the classic rubber duck bath toys, and you know, that's the whole gimmick, but it's so random. And I do see the cuteness appeal to these more so than I do with Funko Pops, and I do see more of a charm with these ducks. Although I get that they are a novelty item and it's not meant to be taken so seriously, in my personal subjective opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of this sort of thing. Funko Pops, Tubbz Ducks, any oversaturated, cutesy, cheap novelty collectibles, just get in the bin. Also, how the f*** is there a Tubbz Duck of Brody from Jaws, yet NECA are not allowed to produce figures of the character? Utter bollocks. So to put an end at my raging and end this video on a high note, I thought we'd take a quick look at a selection of the worst Michael Myers masks ever made. Because believe me, some of these masks are absolutely horrific, and for the wrong reasons. So let's start with this guy right here. It's funny because at the back of my mind, I feel like I saw this guy in fancy dress stores when I was a kid, and back then I probably would have really wanted to have this. But yeah, geez, this thing has more of a likeness to Jay Leno than it does to William Shatner. Oh, but now this one is probably my all-time favorite. Saturday Night Fever Myers. I know John Carpenter's Halloween was released in the 70s when disco was at its peak, but I think whoever made this mask took things a little bit too far. And why does the guy look so awkward in the photograph? It's like an awful school yearbook photo. I also love the turtleneck that Michael is rocking in the picture. It really adds to that intimidation factor. And finally, we have what I think is the most cursed, unholy, and diabolical Michael Myers mask ever produced, the Macaulay Culkin. In fact, you know what? That's the biggest disrespect to Macaulay Culkin ever, and I take it back. Because this is truly something from the deepest, darkest pits of hell. I mean, what the f*** were they thinking with this? Literally everything about this is abysmal. From the terrible sculpt, the horrendous eye cuts, and the hair. My god, what is that hair? But the most puzzling thing of all of this is that they've given Michael blue lips. What is that all about? Do you remember in the original Halloween when it's revealed that Michael Myers eats dogs? A lot of people forget about that. Well, apparently this Michael Myers has got a taste for Smurfs. But now I've got to come clean with you guys. I am guilty. Back in 2010, which I can't believe was 15 years ago, I wanted to dress up as Michael Myers for Halloween, but there's not a lot of options for children's sized Michael Myers costumes out there. And well... bruh. I feel nothing but shame. In all honesty though, I remember having a blast being Michael Myers that Halloween, and all the smaller kids were terrified of me. But now I realise that's probably because I resembled a 4-foot tall troll doll more than anything else. It's safe to say that you cannot beat custom works done by artists, such as Nick from Nag Studios, who makes the most stunning and accurate Michael Myers masks out there, with this one right here remaining to be a holy grail in my collection. But with that said, Michael Myers masks have certainly come a long way in the past few years, thanks to companies such as Trick or Treat Studios. Now anyone can purchase an affordable Michael Myers mask with an excellent movie accurate sculpt. It really puts into perspective how horror merchandise and collectibles as a whole has improved drastically in quality within the last decade or so. And there's truly never been a better time to be a collector than today. So that concludes today's video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider slapping that subscribe button and joining me on the channel for more videos about horror and collectibles such as this one. Let me know your thoughts and feelings on these monstrosities that we took a look at today in the comments below. And until next time guys, take care.